Okay, let's go.
Hello there, Chick Chat. We're back with the Teen Mom season finale, episode 15. I'm wearing my Gooseberm shirt in honor of Teen Mom,
Yes, in honor of Bree.
who's not in this episode.
True. She's probably one of the only girls that's not. They really sprinkled everyone in here. So.
They really did. They tried.
It was a good episode, actually. Episodes like these remind me why I watch, but they're few and far between.
So we're going to start with Kate this episode. She's going through this adoption thing. There was a lot of weird voiceovers this entire segment, but basically the gist is that Nova wanted to see Carly, and Kate has been reaching out to Brandon and Teresa trying to make a meeting happen. They used to be under the impression that they would get yearly visits, and that's not exactly the case. I remember actually watching it, I think, on the show when they found out that they weren't yearly visits.
And it was kind of in the flashback, too, when they had that scene with Dawn, and she reminded them what they signed when they were 16 years old or whatever.
2009.
She said it in the most nice way, but I mean, that is, I guess, how you have to say it. That is the document they all agreed on, even though they were 16 and there was no adults involved and no lawyers involved and nobody there to advocate for Kate and Ty except for Dawn, who Kate and Ty say that they love and has been a bridge and all of these things. So I don't want to talk badly about her.
As Tyler has said in a recent live, because Tyler has gone live and answered a lot of questions, there's still this adoption stuff going on right now. He said that basically this whole agreement was on a Word document, and if anybody is thinking about adoption, make sure they have a lawyer involved.
It's not a legal document. It is more of like a mutual agreement that they all wrote down and have agreed to. Now, it's legal that Brandon and Teresa are Carly's parents. That's legal. But the whole agreement of the adoption, that's all just like a verbal agreement that's written down kind of in good faith. And they do have the ability to change that whenever they want. And it seems like they are changing that. Now, who knows why or what's going on? There's definitely a lot of reasons, I guess, that they could be doing that. But I don't think any of them are justifiable enough to keep loving adults out of a kid's life.
I think that because the agreement said until Carly turned 5, they think they upheld that agreement because they let those yearly visits go on until she turned 5. They did the
And they
update.
have been doing it every other year since then, which was also written into there. And it really was just up until now. And even this, what they're filming, it sounds like they saw Carly last year. So that would mean that their technically agreed upon next visit wouldn't be until next year. This would have been an extra visit, kind of at Nova's request as well, which is precious and good and well in a family standpoint. But technically, they're not a family. And the whole thing is really heartbreaking to watch.
It's difficult because on the one end you have Catelynn and Tyler, who are birth parents, and they were 16 when they decided to do this. I do feel like they were swindled by this adoption agency. I don't think this adoption agency was very sound. Then you have Brandon and Teresa, who they obviously are a little bit more conservative than Catelynn and Tyler are used to. And they couldn't have a child, so they had to go through an adoption agency, and that's also its own type of struggle. On top of that, you have Carly, who's the adoptee, and who knows what she thinks or feels, because it seems like only Brandon and Teresa know that in their world. As Tyler was trying to say on his live, Carly's has a pretty private life. She goes to private schools, and she's pretty well in a bubble.
Right.
So she might know that her birth is on TV, but she doesn't know that her birth parents are on TV.
Possible. But she's 15 now. She's got to be using some kind of internet, unless she's really in this Welcome to Plathville type of.
They might be Amish. I don't know.
They could be. I mean, we haven't seen or heard from them really at all. I don't know how well I remember this, but I have heard that they're, I think, running a church or something like that. So they've got to be around people.
I don't know, but just like Tyler said, they wouldn't even really give out their last name when he was trying to ask what Carly's name would be. They didn't even give them a middle name for a few years. I don't know. I have this theory. It's not truth. It's a theory. I have this theory that Brandon and Teresa, for one, feel kind of threatened by the whole birth parent situation. A lot of adoptive parents, I feel, do, especially when they're around and want to have contact and stuff like that. A lot of people adopt kids, usually the parents aren't out of the picture. And open adoption is very difficult, I think. It's like all the feels, right? Like a kid that you can't have on your own. You don't want them to always be wanting their birth family more. Like, it's like a touchy situation.
And at the same time, though, if you're going to adopt and you don't want to deal with that, then have a closed adoption.
Yeah.
Don't have all this hope. Or I told Kate and Ty when they were 16, you guys are in the driver's seat, blah, blah, blah. And That is just not the way that this has played out, especially the last several years. And while all this was going on and she was making posts, was somebody had said something along the lines of just because you adopted your kids, like it's not a babysitter until you get better or you
Mhm.
have more resources and then all of a sudden you come back along. And I can appreciate that. But I think Kate and Ty are also trying to make sense of all their trauma by educating themselves about adoption and what's healthy and the healthiest ways to go about this, which is great, but they're operating based on this idea or this theory that kids who are adopted are better off generally when they're able to have a relationship. And I think that in general, that is obviously a good thing. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen all the time. That doesn't mean that that is actually people's reality. It just means it's better. People's emotions get in the way. People's fear, like you said, Brandon and Teresa probably have a lot of fear, and Tyler has talked about that recently in live too, and his fear and how all that plays out. It's just sad for everyone. I think Tyler said it perfectly in the episode that we watched, where he said adoption is trauma. And it's like at the same time, on the other side of the coin, if you don't adopt and you keep your child, I know that that child would have gone through trauma when Kate and Ty
Pretty young.
in their situation. And who knows if
Mhm.
Kate and Ty would have been able to have time to be where they are today. They took 6 more years before they had another kid, and they did a lot of emotional work in that time.
Carly might have been raised by Butch and April almost. Tyler said in his live that Butch and April showed up to a court case trying to get Carly, I think, from Brandon and
Yeah,
Teresa, and
they
they
sure did.
lost. They took one look at April and Butch, and they were like, "No,
Absolutely not. Kate and Ty willingly adopted Harley.
yeah,
There was no the state took them or there was circumstances or blah blah blah. They willingly signed papers to adopt. They don't even have nobody as the grandparents have rights in I think all the states as far as I know, but certainly not after they've been adopted to another family legally.
Well, I think because April and Butch didn't sign the papers to let Caitlyn adopt and stuff,
Right.
but I think because Tyler's mom signed that must have just canceled that out
Yeah.
anyways, you know?
So at the end of the day, I don't know. I still can't for the life of me understand why Butch and April wanted to have such a problem with them adopting their kid. Like any of them
Mhm.
had the capacity to care for a child the way that they deserve to. I mean, Carly is lucky to have been adopted, even with all this drama going on. And I think I've heard Kate and Ty say along the same lines that they're happy that she is where she is, but they wish that they had a more
Right,
normal relationship in their perception
right.
of,
'Cause nobody knew this show was gonna continue on for
yeah,
literally decades. They thought they were doing a one-off documentary
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and
So
I think that's part of Brandon and Teresa's perspective too, is I mean, they just didn't sign up to be talked about for years and years and years. Even if it's in a positive way or whatever, even when Carly's not shown, we're talking about her. We're talking about her circumstances. We're talking about what's going on and the adoption and all these things. And I'm sure they just had no idea, even knowing as adults that cameras were around and they were filming a show. People still, when they renew a season, were like, wow, okay. Like, like it's every time they renew these seasons, we're like, okay, it's still going. So, I mean, they must just feel crazy
mhm.
about the whole thing. But I do also know the second child that they adopted, Kate and Ty referred the bio mother of this child to Brandon and Teresa. And Brandon and Teresa have also cut off this second child's parents like long ago.
Oh,
So,
I thought that they still talk to the other one's mom.
not that I've heard.
I thought Tyler said in his live or whatever that they still talk to her.
Oh, maybe I heard it wrong. I thought he was saying that they don't.
I don't know. Let us know, Chick Chat.
Let's go back and listen. But everybody's watching this stuff right now. Anyone who cares about Teen Mom is probably listening to something along the lines of what's going on with all of this. So let us know what you heard, because I don't know. I could have heard it wrong and could have heard it wrong.
This
It
whole
could,
adoption
could be both.
situation is just sad. I think that it's a combination of things, though. The fear, the show blew up. Tyler says that if they would to give him a reason, he would feel a little bit better. I don't agree with just cutting somebody off and not saying anything. Like, she
Yeah.
blocked all Kate's weird updates, which some of them were to Carly, but I do think some of her updates, because she did share a bunch of screenshots on her Instagram. I do think some of those updates are just not really asking about Carly. They're just like, hey, we did this. And that's fine. But I think you should also add, like, I'd love to know what you've been up to, blah, blah. And it seems like her updates are really close together, like just a couple weeks apart. Like,
Yes, that was my thought when I first saw all those two is seems like there's a lot of updates happening. And I'm
mm,
not going to tell her she can't do that because that's her daughter. But I mean, it could be borderlining harassment depending on how you look at it. I mean, you don't have rights to this kid and you're texting her week after week after week with no response to her, not even her phone. And she's 15, she probably has a phone. I'm not saying she should be
Well,
texting
she
her own
might not.
phone. True. That's yeah. You don't really know what.
She's kinda got older school style parents, I think.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to have a 15-year-old these days without a phone. Even the Plaths were
Even the
screaming for a phone.
blast.
Even the Plaths on the farm, barefoot, asking for a cellular device for what?
This whole adoption situation is just sad all around. I
Just
think it's sad for Brandon and Teresa. It's sad for Carly. It's sad for Kate and Tyler. It's sad for the kids, Nova, Veda, Raya, all everybody. I think that them calling these girls like sisters all the time might be also rubbing Brandon and Teresa the wrong way. I think it's fine if they say it here and there, but I don't know. I feel like there's just so much built up animosity between all these people because over time, Tyler's felt slighted by them. They felt slighted by Kate and Ty, so it's just now kind of built up. I don't think there was a huge fight or anything. I don't think there's anything that Kate and Ty are leaving out. I just think over time, like these visits maybe have had more attention
Yeah.
because I think Carly is getting older. Maybe she's asking more questions and maybe she wants to know a little bit more about Kate and Ty on top of maybe when Kate and Ty are around, they're not the most, I mean, I wouldn't say respectful because I'm sure they're respectful, but Kate and Ty always bring up the fact, I gave you this gift. I gave you this gift. And I mean, as appreciative as they, I'm sure, are for that and should be for that because it is a huge gift. It just also feels like when Tyler talks about them, he kind of throws things in their face a little bit too. And I get
Yeah,
that
it's
because they're upset. Yeah. So I don't know. I can just see everybody's side. I just feel
I
bad
think
for everybody.
everyone's entitled to their emotions here too. Nobody
Yeah.
is doing anything crazily wrong.
No, I just wish that there would have been more resources for Kate and Ty maybe back in the day, or that adoption does need some kind of reform. There needs to be more rights for people who give their child up for adoption and choose an open adoption or semi-open adoption. And I think minors need to be represented always by some kind of public defender type lawyer, like somebody. I don't know. There needs to be some kind of reform with adoption. I do agree with that because it seems like a very traumatic process no matter what.
I'm definitely all for sprucing up a system, especially one that involves kids, because none of these systems are perfect. But I also feel like this is a system designed with the purpose of removing one child from a family and giving it to another one. Now,
Yeah.
willingly, we're not talking about foster care or anything. We're talking about adoption. So it's all quote unquote willingly. But I mean, nobody gives their kid up when they're in happy and healthy circumstances. Everybody is in a vulnerable position. So I think you're right. There should be more resources for the person who's considering that choice. But I also don't think you're going to make a system make this any easier. At
Well,
any
no, I
time
think
you give up a child, it's going to be awful forever.
I don't think that it's gonna be fun. I just think that after, as teenagers, especially like Caitlin and Tyler did not know all of their rights. They did not know what these agreements, what they were actually signing.
Right.
Somebody who can actually sit down and explain to them what they're getting themselves into, what this is going to look like moving forward, not just 5 years from now, but 20 years from now, and give them maybe therapy outlet because there's going to be trauma around this because this is a traumatic thing no matter what for everybody involved, especially an adoptee, because they're always going to feel conflicted. Most things that I've heard of adoptees from people I've know from people online or on TV, like it's Snooki even, they always feel conflicted between their birth family and their adopted family.
Yeah, my grandpa was adopted actually. And when ancestry, DNA, and all that stuff started coming out, it was something that I was really interested in and really wanted to do. And a lot of that was because my grandpa, who was pretty closely linked to me DNA
Mhm.
wise, was adopted. And so we don't really know anything about that side of the family. And we're pretty sure it happened in Germany. And so, like, to be able to access a lot of that information is very difficult and has been very difficult. So I was excited to do this ancestry DNA thing. So I called him as soon as I got it at home and I was about to do it. I forgot that that man left. So I called him when I was about to do it and he was like, I don't want you to do that. I could tell in his voice he was a little angry and confused. And he was like, why would we care? Why does it matter? Essentially. And I'm like, well, it matters for health and DNA and historical informational purposes. And he just didn't want anything to do with it. So at that point, I felt like I was going against my grandpa because his tone was not pleased. So I never did it. But I think you're right. I mean, it's always a conflicting thing because there's no way that you can't be curious. And
Mhm.
yet, even in your old age, to be so stubborn and these are my parents, this is my family, the people who raised me. I think that that speaks volumes as well to the awareness that an adoptee must have of
Mhm.
that at some point their life was really in limbo and these people took over and luckily like each other enough and have this bond enough that I consider them my parents for life. I think that that's a really special thing in itself. So it's got to feel like a major conflict when you also want to know where you come from biologically.
Mhm.
And you might connect with those people. They're biologically your family. You probably might have similar interests, even if you were raised far away. So I think that, like Tyler said, the whole thing is trauma, but I don't think you could take the trauma out of it. I think that that's the sad thing of getting pregnant when you're not in a position to have a baby. All trauma from that point forward, no matter what you do, no matter what option you take. Even if you keep the child, it would have been trauma for Kate and Ty and Carly if they kept her.
I just wish that they had somebody there to explain everything better because obviously Dawn didn't
Yes.
do a very good job of that. I don't know why she didn't do a very good job of that.
I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why. I guess because Tyler thinks I should, so I'm going to do that. But I think she thought she was explaining it to the best of her ability. But she's also not an unbiased third party. She's working for the adoption company. It's her
Mhm.
job to match adoptees with adoptive parents. So to have a hiccup or something happen last minute, I think is probably something she would have just tried to avoid or mend or whatever. And she probably has mended the out of a lot of things to the point where Brandon and Teresa are done mending.
Yeah. Well, before we stop talking about Caitlin and Tyler, I do find it interesting that Trin and Teresa live in North Carolina and they're adopting kids from Michigan. I just find that interesting.
I thought that too. And my first thought, I'm like, well, that's just how they do adoptions, maybe because it's good separation, I guess. But I don't know anything about it. If anyone knows anything about it, let me know.
Yeah,
But
let
I
us
thought
know.
that that was interesting as well. The distance,
Mm. Yeah, I was like, they ain't no family in like, the UP or something. I don't
right?
know.
That's what I
Um,
was thinking.
I
Same
don't know
thing.
because it seems like the rights for the adoptions depend on the states. When you go through different states, it seems like things might get a little conflicting. I don't know. But
Just to wrap this up, they do eventually talk to Nova about how they're not going to have a visit this year. And obviously, she's sad and she's confused and she doesn't really understand it. I'm glad that Tyler took over this conversation because Kate was so upset about the whole thing. She was talking like this and mumbling. And it's like, if you're telling your daughter sad news, I know you're taking it hard too, but you need to sit up straight like Tyler did and tell her directly what's going on. She was just giving me April vibes in that
mhm.
moment. She was just mad, and rightfully so. But you can't talk to your kids that way,
so
especially
much
when you're delivering bad news.
so much April vibes when they showed that scene of her on the phone and she's just looking out the window and there's like ding 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 and I'm thinking this girl better not have her notifications on for real. This better have just been for the scene.
I swear, I was watching that this morning, and I swear that woke Tyler up because it was just so many ding, 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 ding.
Ding. I am not a
Yeah,
public figure and I don't have my notifications on like that. I couldn't even imagine being a public figure having your notifications ding 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 every time someone leaves a
never,
comments, like so like no,
never,
couldn't be me.
never,
They just
ever.
did it probably for those 5 minutes that MTV was there and she could look out the window like
Right,
April. Very
right.
April looking to me this episode. I don't know why.
The older she gets, the more her face just looks like April. Which I think
Mm,
just because she's not saying she looks old, she doesn't, but she just looks like April. It's more
yeah.
like this area. I don't know, but
It's
I
sad.
don't know why Janelle is in this episode. There's a lot going on in this episode. Janelle did not really give us much. She cried about her last day on the land, though, which made me chuckle.
Her little intro after Amber's intro was so weird. Everybody's crying here. Why did they show me Amber sad scene and then Janelle? I'm like, what's going
The whole thing is
on?
sad.
So much trauma in this episode. Janelle's last day on the land, and the only person she's talking to in her little group chat thing is Brianna.
Yep.
I don't know why they don't include her with the rest of the girls. It's not like she don't get along with any of those girls. I think the only one she might not get along with is what Amber.
Pretty sure they all kind of distance themselves from her, so it would be kind of fake at this point. It's not like she came to any of the reunions or anything.
I
I mean, it's
guess
all fake, but it also doesn't make any sense. Why would Janelle be talking in that group chat?
they showed her pretending to talk to Brie in a group chat. 'Cause I think all those group chat little solo videos are just solo videos.
I don't even think it's them responding.
Janelle has a scene with Jace where she talks to him about, I guess, her past mistakes. She tries to gaslight us a little bit by telling us that Jace was stolen from her as a
And
baby.
Jace.
Can
And
I
let's
just
not
say
forget,
Jace's voice? He has such a cute little accent, and I don't know, he's just such a little man now. So
he's
crazy.
precious. I wish we could see him more. I
Mhm.
was thoroughly impressed with his little scene because Janelle is so awkward. I mean, Jace was carrying that whole scene. He's like, "Yeah, I feel safe for now.
There's no David.
Tell us your truth because this woman will sit here and lie on you in front of your face to try to keep a story straight. So
She's like,
thank you."
"Are you still mad at me?" And he's like,
No.
No, not right now. Now that David's gone, I have peace, and I haven't had peace. She's like, yeah, you said you know sick of CPS and all this stuff, and then they show all these flashbacks of Janelle giving up Jace and Barbara and their fights and blah blah. I mean, this kid has been through a lot, and I've always
So
felt the
much.
most. I feel like for Janelle's kids in general, because I mean, seeing Jace to the baby at that screen door, and then now, honestly, for me, it's Kaiser because, you know, we always overlook Kaiser. But last time we saw this kid, he's screaming, feed me. Now he's crying that his dad's not showing up to visits that his dad set up.
I wasn't even going to bring this up because I know kids might have certain attachments to clothing or whatever, but like Kaiser's clothes are always stained. Always.
Mm.
Not just like a couple of stains. Like, looks like this kid ate spaghetti all over his face. And then she just wiped it off with a towel and sent him on his way. But like every scene I see this kid in, he's got the whole collar is covered in stains. And again, I know kids are messy. I know maybe he wanted to wear that. I know there's all kinds of things. So I wasn't even going to bring it up, but I just feel like he is like the lost child. I don't know. He just seems sad all the time. Even when they pulled up and he was all excited, he wanted to go out, get out of the car to go see his dad. And she's like, oh, we got to wait. And then they show his camera angle and he's just staring at the camera. He's looking at this camera. All these people are out to watch my dad just ghost me right now. Like, I felt that when I saw him just look at the camera. He's like, oh, this ain't really happening. And then he sat there for 50 minutes and just waited. When Janelle got the text, you could tell he was slumped over, either sleeping or taking a nap, and he sits up. And then, yeah, just so sad. He's like, I haven't seen him in 2 years.
Started crying. I felt
Yes.
so bad.
With
Sad.
everything going on with Jace, with everything going on with David, and Inslee is their kid and whatever. I just feel like Kaiser must just have to fend for himself all the time.
I always feel so horrible for him. And I don't know what Janelle's kink with Nathan is, but her voiceover for Nathan, like, we had this
She
wild love
loves him.
affair type thing. It's like, you never got over Nathan, did you?
She would get back with him today with his domestic
Yeah, and
violence.
I get they're in the same state now, but for one, Nathan, do better because you should be asking for permission before you set up a date with your son that you haven't seen in 2
Before he
damn
is there
years.
at the
Yeah.
place.
Before he even mentions it to Janelle, he should get permission first or ask Janelle first and then get permission and then get back with Janelle. But they should not be coordinating this until permission was had.
And I'm sorry, but this should not have even been on air. If they tried to film it because maybe it was going to happen, that's one thing. Put it on air if it happened and it's a nice story. But like, this is just sad to see. I don't need to see little Kaiser staring at the camera angle, waiting for his dad for 50 minutes. And I feel like the whole thing was BS. You're just going to text probably after the whole thing. Like, they sat there for an hour. He's probably texting at the end of the hour the visit was supposed to be. Like, obviously, I'm not going to make it. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
think any of this was
And
real.
I'm not even Kaiser's mom, and I'm sitting here about to cry watching this kid. I had
So
tears
what?
in my eyes, and his mom just says, "Sorry, Bubba."
Get out of your seat and hug your kid. And tell him he's valuable and loved and worthy. Look this kid in his face, not in the back mirror. Yeah, I felt the same way.
It shouldn't even happen in the first place. Janelle should have vetted that a lot better.
Just was blinded by going to see Nathan. She couldn't wait to see that man, especially in rehab. He probably looks so good. I swear, she just couldn't wait to see that man.
And I'm mad at Nathan. Nathan, do better. I can get why maybe your co-parenting, whatever is going on, relationship, whatever, has suffered with David being around, but David's not around anymore. Y'all are in the same state. Seems like y'all are close enough to where she can come over for visits.
Yep.
Just do better. And yeah, I do think Janelle's got some weird kink with Nathan. I mean, she was calling him a good father and stuff in this little flashback, and that they had a wild love affair of some sort. And I'm just
I know.
like,
It
what
was
is
so
going
weird.
on? She's been
So
talking nice about Nathan in these flashbacks whenever she mentions him. She's like, and then there was Nathan, who I was so in love with.
she
So
was, though. She was. But it's very obvious she still is because she just blames his alcoholism and now he's in rehab. So maybe we'll have a rekindling. Maybe
been working
Kaiser
on
will be the
alcoholic.
favorite child after all.
He deserves to be at this point, but
He deserves it. He really does.
even being the favorite child, you don't get much of nothing. I think Jace is her favorite child because she was trying to get custody back for so long.
Provides so much free services. Thanks for taking care of the kids and packing our whole house and being everything.
And she was thanking him for taking care of the kids and stuff. I'm like, so you can go to Airbnbs in Vegas and do all
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Create yourself a nice little marijuana strain. Craziness.
This episode is filled with sadness, but we're gonna take a break from all the sadness and go to Mackenzie now. And
Oh, pick me up. Who would have thought?
yeah,
Mackenzie, the pick me up.
I know Brooke was like, what a turn of events. Where Mackenzie's the only one without a sad scene.
Mackenzie used to make me sob. Oh, everyone else is making me sob.
Mackenzie's family is coming in to visit her I guess they take the kids back with them usually for the summer so the kids can spend some time in Oklahoma, maybe hopefully see their father or donor, whatever you want to call
Helpful.
him. Her family's coming into town, and it looks like Kaz was picking them up from the airport. They were trying to figure out a little plan for Mackenzie. He was talking to Mackenzie's dad about proposal, and they came up with a little photo shoot with Mackenzie and her sisters. Apparently, they do that every once in a while. And then Kaz is going to say he's going fishing. This whole thing was cute, I think. I love how excited Kaz was.
Like, everybody was excited to be part of it and to help plan it. And it was Mackenzie's dad's idea to trick her with the whole photo shoot thing. And Kaz was like, I think that is a great idea. He's just like the most enthusiastic guy. I know we get annoyed with him, and a lot of people do because he's overly positive, but he does give so much light and shiny happiness all the time. He's great. I think Mackenzie's mom had to have sent this man because he's just light in a human. He's perfect for her.
He's perfect for her, yeah. Because she kind of is too if you let her be. I mean, you put her with Josh and she's miserable, but you put her with somebody who's happy all the time. This girl is bouncing around, and
she has one of those personalities where she can just be obliviously happy in her own life. She doesn't need anything else going on. She doesn't really need any drama or anything to worry about.
They are setting up this little beach thing. Everybody is really good actors. Her siblings and everything, they really played it off quite well. They almost made it seem like they all came up with it on the spot. That was just some really good acting from them. Much better than some of the acting we get from Lambert.
Totally. Mackenzie's family is really close, so I think they just all feel comfortable around each other too. And it really was the perfect idea because Mackenzie said when she heard this that they haven't taken sister photos in a while since her mom passed away, and it's something that they used to do quite often. It was the perfect idea. I don't think Mackenzie had any idea.
When she walked up on that beach, she was shook. Kaz had all these roses out on the beach.
I know, and they were both like covering their faces, and then she ran to him. It was beautiful.
She couldn't even speak. She was just like,
and he's like, did you see the whole time he's giving his little speech? Her dad would like pop up over on the side. His little head would peek over.
He was getting emotional. He was loving it.
He was like, this is Kaz's face. And he'd be saying this whole thing. And then you'd see your dad.
He's funny. I love her dad. Her dad's so cute. Mackenzie and Kaz are engaged, and everybody seems happy by it. Even her kids looked excited. It was a great way to break up a lot of this heavy material. Wish we had a little bit more of the lighter stuff.
I wish they would have also just ended on this being the last scene.
I think it would have been nicer than what we
Amber's
get
downward spiral.
Oof. Yeah. Anyways.
Back to the misery.
We're going to go over to Ashley, who we're now following again. She is living her best single life, waiting for those divorce papers from Bar. Apparently, because they got married in California, she has to get divorced through there too. So she's waiting for Bar to file those papers of a joint divorce, which when I was watching this, Dean was like, what's a joint divorce? I'm like, I think when you both file, I don't know. I just wonder why she couldn't have filed online through California or something.
I think she could have. I think that they printed all that paper out just for producers.
Yeah, I don't know. You never know. A lot of this stuff seems pretty produced. There was a lot of weird voiceovers over everything. This episode was pretty crazy with that. So Ashley goes to the club with her new man. It's a friend that's turning into more than a friend. She's taking shots, kissing him, taking photos, posting it on her Instagram, Facebook, whatever she's got.
Looking that man's whole face down. It really was.
I felt like I was watching like Love is Blind or Love Island or whatever.
I agree.
2 seconds after she posts this man, which I think she just posted his arms around her, not even his face or anything. I guess Bar is calling her upset. Who is this your new man? He's coming to Nevada. Did you just cheat on this woman? What is wrong with you people?
You just agree to a joint divorce?
I don't get it.
Don't you get the papers in the mail probably on the table?
He probably thought she meant like a joint divorce. Who is to know? Bar is apparently really upset with this whole thing. He decided to come back and show that he's insane and show up at Ashley's house. And they had this weird scene of Ashley walking up to the door. That had to have been staged for MTV. Because do not tell me that MTV was sitting outside with all this going on and Ashley's mom is the one that had to call the police. Please tell me that is not what happened.
No. If Larry drove Amber 7 hours from Knoxville to Gary, Indiana. What I forgot that she also lives in Gary.
No, she lives in Indianapolis.
She lived in Gary for a long time. There's no way that if production stepped in to drive someone 7 hours, that they would not step in to save someone's life when it's apparently in danger, because according to her mom's 911 call, which I don't think is an exaggeration, even though this woman has a tendency to be a little dramatic, her mom was very concerned, and I think
Okay.
rightfully so, should have been very concerned. Ashley obviously knew that Barr was up to something if she was on the phone with her mom going into the house. She obviously knew not to go back home that night because of whatever Barr told her on the phone. And even if she
Mhm.
thought this man can't be crazy enough to go against his probation and find himself down here in my apartment somehow, but yet
Mhm.
he is, and we all know that he is. I think Ashley's mom was right after the whole thing went down, and she said, "You're so desensitized to all this stuff. It's great that you keep Holly out of it and you take good care of her, but you being so desensitized to having so much violence in your relationship is not going to trickle down to your kid."
Mhm. I felt really bad for Ashley when her mom's sitting there. I didn't know if I was gonna see her face again, and Ashley just
She could
couldn't even.
not even take that in, or she would have broke down.
Mhm.
And she needs to break down, she needs to take all that in, but I don't think she's gonna give herself the space right now to really deal with it.
I don't know what happened when they were in there. It seems like Ashley kinda downplays it as they got into an argument or something,
Well,
and
Bar's hit her before, and Bar does have access to guns, and he did not just drive down there to have a conversation. I think we all can agree with that.
and
Like,
usually the scariest time when you're leaving somebody is when you're getting divorced and all that, and
yeah,
she just posted another man, so I can see why her mom would be so panicked and afraid and everything. I think everybody, almost all generations at this point, have seen so much true crime content, unless you are a child right now. This stuff happens a lot, and it's
yeah.
usually situations like this, and you don't think it's gonna be you, and I don't know. I felt really bad for her mom, 'cause especially because she just lost a child not that long ago, so imagine the fear that she had thinking she was about to lose another one. I can see exactly why her mom was saying, "I don't care if he ever sees Holly, blah, blah." Her mom's still traumatized by this. It's not just Ashley that's getting traumatized by this. It's probably Holly, her mom. I mean, luckily Holly wasn't there. She was probably with her mom because Ashley was out that night. But what if she was home? How would
Yeah.
this have went down? And she would have saw it. It's just scary.
Yeah, I'm glad that she's okay. And I'm glad that Bar is okay too, because the whole other end of that is yes, all of that happened. And at the same time, the police are the only people who have the authority and the power to do anything about that
Mhm.
situation while it's happening. And
Mhm.
it's also a very scary situation for the two of them to be in a house with a domestic violence situation thing going on. And all these police officers are outside not knowing what they're about to walk into. And she's right. Sometimes they'd be trigger happy, especially around Black people. And I can't imagine that they weren't scared in there. And they probably did stop arguing, and they probably did try to make a game plan with each other, because at that point, I think they both were probably scared. Everyone walked away safe and everything was fine. But
No, but it's still a possible. Still possible.
it's still possible. If Ashley and Bard, even though they were in a violent situation at that time, if they did not have the rapport to be able to put that aside for a minute and talk to each other rationally about how to get out of that situation safely together, who knows what it would have ended up like. If Barr would have been out of his mind enough to not listen to Ashley, to not let her walk out the door, those are the things that happen all the time, and it doesn't end as safely. I think
Especially in like a
Ashley really,
hostage situation,
yeah,
they'll usually just.
when he starts putting barricades over the door and all that kind of stuff, I
Mhm.
mean, that's when things really probably felt very real to her. She did an amazing job. She saved herself, she saved Barsh. That
Mhm.
ended the best way that it could have, which is just him just going straight to jail. She did meet with a divorce attorney, so it seems like she's gonna really solidify this now. She's not gonna wait around for Bar to sign these papers in jail. And it does seem like the custody situation is gonna change now too, because she was very open to him having 50-50 and split decisions and all of that. And obviously he's in jail right now,
Sole
which
custody, so, I mean, I don't
she
blame her.
needs to. I've never seen Bar do more than babysit.
I agree. I think that she should definitely have gone for sole custody. I mean, even to begin with, but
Yeah.
especially after this. From scary to Carrie, Gary, whatever. We get a little montage of what we've been through with Gary 2.0 so far, and then we see
Like
him.
3 weeks.
Yeah, we see him leave. So this is the missing episode. Gary does go missing in this episode. Gary, come home. I still don't even know what happened. Amber's pretty vague about it in this whole entire little blurb. But then when she comes on, her voiceover sounds insane.
Really insane. And I got kind of disappointed. I don't know why I thought this was going to be like a first 48 episodes. Like, I thought we were going to searching for this man. And you can tell by her voice, this is way after the fact. This is after she's had her mania episode, been fully medicated,
Mhm.
processed a little bit. Now she's doing this voiceover explaining what happened way after the fact. Because she sounds tired. She sounds sad. She's beaten down. It's awful. She sounds over medicated again, which by the end of this episode, we'll understand why. I mean, she really needed some help. MTV rolls this woman so hard. As soon as everyone finds out that Gary is missing, there goes
Mhm.
all the things everyone's saying about her online. And I understand that that has to be covered because it was a big part of the story and a big part
Yeah.
of her spiral at the end of all this. But some of those were brutal. And then they just
Yeah.
locked in on that last one.
They even played like some of her audio from when she went on LB and talked to
Yeah.
her about Gary and
Yeah,
stuff.
Macy decided to come if you don't watch the show and you just hear us. So Macy joins her. And I feel like they wanted to play that off as voiceover.
Mhm.
He left his phone, but he took his keys and his wallet. That was from LB. I
Mhm.
listened to it 60 times. That was not a voiceover or what she said to Macy in that moment. I don't think she was mic'd up at all. I
Couldn't even
feel like
show the inside of that place. If she was
that's what I'm
mic'd up,
saying.
ready to go, ready to talk, they would have showed
Yeah,
Missy
when
seeing.
she was all crying in the preview last time about he broke me, blah blah blah. I was thinking that was in the Airbnb. And
Yeah.
so I was just so disappointed to not see the whole behind the scenes this stuff happening. And then I was also confused because they showed that they had the sighting of Gary
Yeah.
in New Mexico, but it wasn't, I guess, yet confirmed that that was him. He's still a missing person. He hadn't yet contacted the police, but people were confirming that that was him. Like, there was a photo, I think, if I remember
Mhm.
right. So people knew, but he was still technically missing. He hadn't reached out to police or anything. But at that point, when Macy came outside and she was on the phone, called Kate to give Kate
Mhm.
the update that Gary 2.0 was seen. At that point, I thought that it was done with and they were leaving
Mhm.
and going home, and that Amber knew for sure that he was safe and okay because she was talking to Macy when they did their drive from wherever to Knoxville because Macy drove her a quarter of the way and then
Not
Larry
even.
drove over 7 hours. They
This
just
girl get on a flight.
Larry wanted to seek as much information as possible, and he got a lot of information out of her in that car ride. We found out sort of a side of a story about what happened right before he left, which it sounds like Gary 2.0, as we all suspected, his mother saw a Wikipedia page of Amber's. And here goes MTV trolling Amber again, just highlighting, assault, machete, hunts him down, pushes him down the stairs, very surely, all these things, which it all happened. Amber is assuming that Gary 2.0 was holding in all of this family disapproval. And then at some point, they started talking about how are we going to get married if your family is thinking this way about me? She says he seemed like he was pretty hopeless and pretty lost when he left. So I could definitely see why she thought something tragic might have happened when he didn't come back. But I think his family probably told him, you better back away slowly. Have
Or
you
all at
seen
once.
this? Not only do you need to leave, but you need to do it quietly. You need to change your name. You need to go to a different state. They were probably scared for him.
So it took 7 to 8 months for these people to look up her Wikipedia page.
This is a huge assumption, but I know in Vietnamese families, as we've all kind of assumed and talked about and generalized, that there's strict family structures and rules and norms and things
Mhm.
like that. So I'm guessing maybe he didn't even really say he was dating anyone until he was
Probably
engaged.
not. I bet when they announced the engagement, that's when his parents figured everything out.
And then they find out who this woman really is via Wikipedia, which is not pretty and does not give a lot of context other
Mhm.
than this girl was a teen mom. Why is he in jail and all the things that got her? There's a lot in her past that's just on the Wikipedia page. Nothing pretty.
But if I
So
was Amber, which I know is a little bit remedial at best, but if I was her, when I start dating Gary 2.0, I'd be like, listen, this is my history. You should let your family know who I
before
am,
they
what
go
I
online
am.
and see this, yeah, I completely agree. She probably should have made herself available to talk about it. And again, I don't know if she even had the ability or the power to do that. It
Mhm.
seems like everything happened pretty privately amongst him and his family, and
Right.
she was cut out from that point. I think Gary 2.0 didn't think this all the way through, but I also think this was just bound to happen in this kind
Yeah.
of relationship. I don't think his family was going to stand for this. I don't know a lot of people's families who are going to be excited about their son marrying Amber Portwood.
Wonder if they set him up with his new marriage. I wonder if now this one's an arranged one. They're like, nope,
You're
can't.
not going another year being a single man because he can't be trusted.
And I wonder how Amber feels about him getting married again. I'm sure we will probably see it on the next season. But she's like,
Yeah,
this man gave me a ring. And I'm like, what, from your own jewelry box?
allegedly.
That's not like a
Allegedly.
beautiful ass ring. Don't front us like that, Amber. But she has this moment after Larry brings her home where she's going to see her psychiatrist, but she's just talking to the producers, just going and going.
I think that was an Uber driver, man. I think it was. Because they said your
Yes.
driver is here to pick you up to take you to your psychiatrist.
Oh, okay.
That was
Set
a
off
random man. You or
session.
I were an Uber driver in Indiana and had the pleasure that day of hearing that story.
He probably didn't even care.
She was speaking to someone in that backseat as if somebody was there.
I know. She's in this Uber. She's babbling. She's like, this isn't even like me, whatever. I'm like, okay. But they're on the way to the psychiatrist. And once he gets there, he's like, okay, we're here. And she's like, I don't even want to go in there. And it's like, well, no, you don't, because you just had your therapy session. You don't need to go there.
Hold it all right there. I
And then
don't want to rehash all this again.
And then she starts having a full-blown episode where producers are opening the car up to try to talk to her. I don't know if there was one on one side, one on the other. They didn't show the one on the other side because they made it look like this girl was talking to absolutely nobody with the door open.
I know. I don't mean to make light of it. She was clearly, like she said, and she was a little aware, like, I'm in a state of mania. I'm not okay. And I
She
don't.
was like talking to Gary. It was like she was talking to him
I know.
in the distance.
I know. She was almost even doing it still in the psychiatrist's office when she was referring to, like, we had built this relationship and it was the best thing we've both ever seen and blah, blah. And she's like pointing like to this guy who's missing, was missing.
I felt bad for her when she was talking about people saying that she offed him. She's done some pretty violent things. So would I be surprised? Maybe not the most surprised as I would be if it was Macy or somebody. But I don't think he actually was going to get rid of him. This woman seemed distraught. This man was gone. And I mean, stranger things have happened, but I'm just saying, I kind of think it's cruel to just jump to that conclusion just because of her history.
I think all that was like hype and people were joking and it's not kind and that was not the time. And at that point, a lot of people didn't even really know what had happened to that guy. Yeah, I could not imagine the whole world thinking that something happened and that you did it, because especially with her history, it does not matter what she says. People will have their opinions and they're going to feel that their opinions have a lot of backing because she has been violent in a pattern of almost all her relationships. So I didn't feel that way when it was going on either, but I also couldn't really blame the people that were saying that at the same time.
I just couldn't say it was somebody who's still missing, though. You gotta wait till y'all find a body.
You never know what people are capable of. There were some weird theories going on, like with her brother helping and all this stuff. And there are too many cameras around. There are too many people around. Like, Bubba just got married. He's on his honeymoon.
The voiceover started with, I went over to North Carolina for Bubby's wedding, and then my life was never the same.
There's no footage of this beautiful wedding. Probably would have been a fun, cool thing to show with Amber introducing her family. There's no footage of this. So they were not filming with her. They probably were done filming her story. And then this man went missing. And they got in there. Macy got in there. They ended up just squeezing her for information for 7 hours straight. And then bam, she's in a manic episode.
Macy provided absolutely nothing and still got a check. So good for you, girl.
So true.
Amber having a manic episode, going into her psychiatrist's office, and dude being like, just come in, because she's like, I'm having a meltdown.
She was probably sitting out there way past her appointment start time, and he probably was like, oh, it's a no-show. I get to go home early. Probably want to go walk out the door, and bam, there's your client just having a full-blown manic episode. Like
that, or he was watching it from the window. I wonder if this is going to come in here.
He did do a good job of just staying cool and calm, because she came in there like, help! And I know she's in distress, but unless she's suicidal, she's not needing that much help. You just need to sit and breathe.
Yep, everything she said, this man was just like, yeah, must be a loss.
That's a loss.
That's a loss.
She was trying to live in denial land for a minute. We was talking as if Gary was over there and they were still in this great relationship. He's like, yep, he's gone.
It's a loss. Amber needed to go to that therapy session, and she needs to go to many more. And hopefully she's doing better now. And I do wonder what she feels about Gary getting remarried around Christmas or whatever is going on. I got a lot of questions for this Gary man. It sounds like he never spoke to her about what happened, never told her what happened. I mean, it says like Amber has not spoken to Gary. She's not spoken to Gary, but I'm like, she has to have some kind of inkling of what happened other than this parent thing. I think there's more to it than that, but that's just...
I really do feel for Amber in this particular situation. I know she has a past and whatever, but nobody deserves this kind of stuff to happen to them. I do hope she's better now, but I do think it's going to cause her to disconnect more from Leah. She's going to be focused on herself and her recovery and all that, which she should be, but just continues to pull her and Leah further away. We haven't really talked about Gary and Christina, but they popped in and out. And you can just tell Christina is at her wit's end. Gary is still playing his whole, she said she hasn't eaten and I feel bad for her. And I do feel bad for her too. But when you're over there as Leah's dad, you need to be acting more like Christina at this point and just focusing on the well-being of child here who is a completely innocent bystander who's just been put now through a whole nother effing whirlwind of what for what. Here's your mom. She's back after 7 months. Now she's engaged and we're going to be a happy family. And she doesn't want to do that. And now she feels conflicted about all that emotionally. And then bam, her mom's going to disappear because this man disappeared. And then she's going to come back again in 6 months. And the whole thing is going to repeat again. I don't blame Christina one bit for just saying, I don't understand why this woman doesn't see that her children are here consistently all the time and will be until the day that she dies if she treats them right. And yet she doesn't. She cares about these men who will just run off in the middle of the night. It's so crazy. So
She's
crazy.
100% right. I mean, people are even asking Leah at school, did she off this man?
My jaw dropped.
And Leah laughed.
She should. I almost feel like, how could Leah even live with herself at this point with all the stuff that is out in the media about her mom? If she were to just decide one day, like, yeah, I do want to have a relationship with my mom and I do want her to come to all my school sports and all that stuff. How is that even possible? Because she probably has all her friends out here thinking that she truly feels the way that she portrays on camera. And I don't know any kid who's not yearning for the love of her parent. Leah on TV, I know that she wants to be strong and say, I don't want to be a part of this and I don't need this and whatever. And I know that Christina provides a wonderful and home. But Leah's got to deep down want her mom to be a better person so that she wants to have a relationship with her. And yet she has to put on this front that she don't really care or don't really like her mom or thinks all these things about her mom. Think somebody is funny. That's not funny.
I don't know if she laughed, or maybe she just nervously laughed. Or
That's what I mean. She has to put on this front. I'm sorry, but if I asked you if your mom hurt somebody, like, I feel like you might be a little offended.
Well, if my mom took a machete to a door, I would understand.
That's what I mean.
Maybe laugh.
Just,
Leah also knows Amber's really not capable of that. I don't think she
Right.
is capable of that. I think this woman is batshit crazy, but I really don't think she is capable of that.
I just feel sad because Leah's friends are young, just like Leah is, and she probably doesn't feel supported by her friends in having a relationship with her mom because of what her own mom has put out there about her own. That is sad.
This whole thing is sad. This whole episode is sad. So
It was a sad end. We almost need another season as soon as possible just to get this like
at
bad
least
taste
a
out of their mouth.
reunion or something. I didn't see any hope of a reunion at all. I think they would have teased it.
So I think that's all, folks. I don't know about next season yet. I haven't seen anything online about that. I mean, I'm sure there will be another one. I don't think they're gonna cliffhanger us on a show that they've let on go for this long.
No, not before moving on to the kids.
With little Jace out there in Vegas. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all.
He looks so much like kids did when we were in middle school. That was the style when we were like middle school.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. With his little growth shirt or whatever, his long hair, his southern accent in Vegas. We might have some problems.
So thank you, Chick Chat, for joining us. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, share, all the things, reduce, reuse, recycle, Rihanna. Keep an eye out for Sister Wives. We got Story of the Week. And whenever Teen Mom comes back, we'll be back to cover it. If anything crazy happens, maybe in the news again, we might cover that too. Maybe one else of Amber's goes missing, or maybe more of the adoption stuff. You never know. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye out.
It's been real. We'll catch it in the next season or the next show.
See you soon. Bye.